Welcome back to textual analysis of the story of the stone. Last time, I changed the pitch of my voice when editing video. Though the adjusted voice sounded better than my original one, but the pitch was a little bit high and felt to be soothing, so I'm gonna keep my raw voice. Let's walk into the first part of chapter 1. The heading of chapter 1 is Zhen Shiyin makes the stone's acquaintance in the dream, and Jia Yuzun finds that poverty is not incompatible with romantic feeling. The first part of the chapter talks about the first acquaintance with the stone. There are three folds. First, we, the readers, meet the stone for the first time. Second, the stone met the deities, a monk and a Taoist, for the first time. Then it went to experience the mundane life with their help. Third, a Taoist called Vanitas, a mortal, met the stone when the stone had come back from the mundane world. Vanitas then copied the story engraved on the stone and named it the story of the stone. Reading the story again and again, Vanitas was deeply touched and attained nirvana. Gentle reader, what you may ask was the origin of this book. Though the answer to this question may at first seem to border on the absurd, reflection will show that there is a good deal more in it than meets the eye. Long ago, when the goddess Nuwa was repairing the sky, she melted down a great quantity of rock, and on the incredible crags of the great Fable Mountains, molded the amalgam into 36,501 large building blocks, each measuring 72 feet by 144 feet square. She used 36,500 of these blocks in the course of her building operations, leaving a single odd block unused, which lay all on its own at the foot of Green Sickness Peak in the aforementioned mountains. Now this block of stone, having undergone the melting and molding of a goddess, possessed magical powers. It could move about at will, and could grow or shrink to any size it wanted. Observing that all the other blocks had been used for celestial repairs, and that it was the only one to have been rejected as unworthy, it became filled with shame and resentment, and passed its days in sorrow and lamentation. Okay, the origin of this book does sound absurd, but it is full of hints for those who determines to decipher the book. It started with a famous legend called Goddess Nuwa repairing the sky. The reason why Nuwa needed to repair the sky is actually familiar to most people, regardless of cultural backgrounds. The deluge. That's right, the deluge, which nearly wiped out the world thousands of years ago. In Chinese version, the cataclysmic flood was caused by the war of deities. One of the four pillars holding up the heaven collapsed and ripped a hole in the sky. Flood poured through the hole and was destroying the earth. As the creator and mother of human being, Nuwa decided to rescue. She melted down the very special 5-color rocks and molded the amalgam into 36,501 large building blocks. She used 36,500 blocks, but one, to repair the sky and salvaged the world. Attention! Here, the legend ends without mentioning the left one. The author of this book, Cao Xueqing, borrowed this legend and created a sequel for the unused stone. The stone doesn't have a name. Considering it is the masterpiece of Goddess Nuwa, let's call it Nuwa Stone. Now begins the sequel. Cao Xueqin placed the stone at the foot of Green Sickness Peak, on the incredible crags of the Great Fable Mountains. Incredible here describes the crags as bizarre and untrue, consistent with fable, as in Fable Mountains, to echo the aforementioned border on the absurd. The names were created by Cao Xueqin. He claimed the whole story was fable, though there is no irrefutable evidence. All rhetorists, regardless of their theories, believe that Cao Xueqin's claim is a deceptive trick, which camouflages the true secretive history. Now, green sickness here is a Chinese word puzzle. Actually, the translation here is a little bit weird, as green sickness is an eye disease which has nothing to do with the real meaning. Okay, the original Chinese character is like this. So this is green. This is, it is pronounced as gong. It means strip of high ground. So if we don't care about the beauty of translation, it should be green strip of high ground. The puzzle is like this. Qing in Chinese sounds similar to qing. This word means love and emotion. Gong sounds similar to gen, means root. So qing gong is actually qing gen, which means humans' love and emotions. According to Buddhism and Taoism, deity and everything in heaven are ultimately pure. They're not bothered by humans' love, emotions, sensations, and lust. Those things nailed us human beings in a mortal world. Nuwa stone, which was designed to repair the sky, should be one of the most holy things. But this one was left at the Qinggeng Peak, which is Qinggeng Peak, tainted by humans' love and emotions. It is not qualified for the celestial repair anymore. Therefore, it is understandable that in the next paragraph, we will see that the sacred stone was intrigued by the mundane life. Let's see how it managed to trip into the human world. One day, in the midst of its lamentings, it saw a monk and a Taoist approaching from a great distance, each of them remarkable for certain eccentricities of manner and appearance. When they arrived at the foot of the Green Sickness Peak, they sat down on the ground and began to talk. The monk, catching sight of a lustrous, translucent stone. It was in fact the rejected building block, which had now shrunk itself to the size of a fan pendant, and looked very attractive in its new shape. Monk took it up on the palm of his hand and addressed it with a smile. "Ha! I see you have magical properties, but nothing to recommend you. I shall have to cut a few words on you, so that anyone seeing you will know at once that you are something special. After that, I shall take you to a certain brilliant, successful, poetical, cultivated, aristocratic, elegant, delectable, luxurious, opulent locality on the little trip." The stone was delighted. "What words will you cut? Where is this place you will take me to? I beg to be enlightened." "Do not ask," replied the monk with a laugh. "You will know soon enough when the time comes." And with that, he slipped the stone into his sleeve and set off at a great pace with the Taoist. But where they both went to, I have no idea. For unknown reason, the translator deliberately omitted some content and adapted into what we just read. Here, I am providing a summary. First, it is a little bit early to describe the two deities as eccentric. They are elegant and divine in this part of the story. Later, when they traveled in the human world, they changed their look into eccentric manners and appearances. Second, the two deities didn't offer to take the Nuwa stone to the trip. They were taking a rest at the foot of the stone and chatting about life in heaven and in mundane world. The stone with magic powers can understand them and talk. So the stone was tremendously intrigued by the description of the aristocratic life and begged the two deities to arrange a trip. They tried to dissuade the stone by saying that all the attractiveness of the mundane world is like the moon's reflection in water. But the stone insisted, so the monk changed it into a fan pendant-sized jade. Then they made the promise of the wonder trip. Countless years went by, and a certain Taoist called Vanitas, in quest of the secret of immortality, chanced to be passing below that same rain-sickness peak in the incredible crags of the Great Fable Mountains, when he caught sight of a large stone standing there, on which the characters of a long inscription were clearly discernible. Vanitas read the inscription through from beginning to end and learned that this was a once lifeless stone block which had been found unworthy to repair the sky, but which had magically transformed its shape and been taken down by the Buddhist Mahasava Impervioso and the Taoist Illuminate Mysterioso into the world of mortals, where it had lived out the life of a man before finally attaining nirvana and returning to the other shore. The inscription named the country where it had been born and went into considerable detail about its domestic life, youthful amours, and even the verses, mottos, and riddles it had written. All it lacked was the authentication of a dynasty and date. On the back of the stone was inscribed the following quatrain: "Found unfit to repair the azure sky, long years a foolish mortal man was I. My life in both words on this stone is writ. Pray who will copy out and publish it?" We see amazing translations. First is Vanitas. It is amazing to use an existing word which can perfectly explain one of Tao values. A vanitas is a symbolic work of art showing the transient of life, the futility of pleasure, and the certainty of death. Returning to the other shore is great because in Buddhism, it is believed that human life is a sea of bitterness. Nirvana is reaching beyond the bitter sea, that is, beyond the human life, and to heaven. From his reading of the inscription, Vanitas realized that this was a stone of some consequence. Accordingly, he addressed himself to it in the following manner: "Brother Stone, according to what you yourself seem to imply in these verses, this story of yours contains matter of sufficient interest to merit publication, and has been carved here with that end in view. But as far as I can see, it has no discoverable dynastic period, and it contains no examples of moral grandeur among its characters. No statesmanship, no social message of any kind. All I can find in it, in fact, are a number of females, conspicuous, if at all, only for their passion or folly, or for some trifling talent or insignificant virtue. Even if I were to copy all this out, I cannot see that it would make a very remarkable book. This address, working as breaking the fourth wall in theater, has two meanings. First, it displays the special features of storytelling of this book. Second, Vanitas asked out on behalf of the reader, so that the author can elaborate the reasons as well as his values and beliefs directly. By the way, the folly here is not very accurate. The original meaning is more like infatuation. "Come, your reverence," said the stone, for Vanitas had been correct in assuming that it could speak. "Must you be so obtuse? All the romances ever written have an artificial period setting, Han or Tang for the most part. In refusing to make use of that stale old convention and telling my story of the stone exactly as it occurred, it seems to me that, far from depriving it of anything, I have given it a freshness these other books do not have. Your so-called historical romances, consisting as they do of scandalous anecdotes about statesmen and emperors of bygone days, and scabrous attacks on the reputations of long-dead gentlewomen, contain more wickedness and immoralities than I care to mention. Still worse is the erotic novel, by whose filthy obscenities our young folk are all too easily corrupted. And the boudoir romances, those dreary stereotypes with their volume after volume, all pitched on the same note, that their different characters undistinguishable except by name. All those ideally beautiful young ladies and ideally eligible young bachelors, even they seem unable to avoid descending sooner or later into indecency. Han Dynasty rules China between 202 BC to 220 AD. Tang Dynasty ruled China between 618 to 904 AD. These two are regarded as the greatest imperial dynasties in Chinese history, when the country was most powerful, peaceful, and prosperous, and also influential, of course. So that is why Han and Tang are two favorable dynasties those writers like to use. By the way, the literary criticism here can be applied universally. The trouble with this last kind of romance is that it only gets written in the first place because the author requires a framework in which to show off his love poems. He goes about constructing his framework quite mechanically, beginning with the names of his pair of young lovers, and invariably adding a third character, a servant or the like, to make mischief between them, like the chou in the comedy. Here, chou in Chinese comedy is like clown in Western comedy. What makes these romances even more detestable is the stilted, bombastic language. Inanities dressed in pompous rhetoric, remote alike from nature and common sense, and teeming with the grossest absurdities. Surely, my number of females, whom I spent half a lifetime studying with my own eyes and ears, are preferable to this kind of stuff. I do not claim that they are better people than the ones who appeared in books written before my time. I am only saying that the contemplation of their actions and motives may prove a more effective antidote to boredom and melancholy. And even the inelegant verses with which my story is interlarded could serve to entertain and amuse on those convivial occasions when rhythm and riddles are in demand. All that my story narrates, the meetings and partings, the joys and sorrows, the ups and downs of fortune, are recorded exactly as they happened. I have not dared to add the tiniest bit of touching up, for fear of losing the true picture. My only wish is that men in the world below may sometimes pick up this tale when they are recovering from sleep or drunkenness, when they wish to escape from business worries or a fit of the dumps, and in doing so, find not only mental refreshment, but even perhaps, if they will heed its lesson, and abandon their vain and frivolous pursuits, some small arrest in the deterioration of their vital forces. What does your reverence say to that? For a long time, Vanitas stood lost in thought, pondering this speech. He then subjected the story of the stone to a careful second reading. He could see that its main theme was love, that it consisted quite simply of a true record of real events, and that it was entirely free from any tendency to deprave and corrupt. He therefore copied it all out from beginning to end, and took it back with him to look for a publisher. As a consequence of all this, Vanitas, starting off in the void, which is truth, came to the contemplation of form, which is illusion, and from form engendered passion, and by communicating passion entered again into form, and from form awoke to the void. He therefore changed his name from Vanitas to Brother Armor, or the passionate monk, because he had approached truth by way of passion, and changed the title of the book from The Story of the Stone to The Tale of Brother Armor. Old Meisi, from the homeland of Confucius, called the book a mirror for the romantic. Wu Yufeng called it a dream of golden days. Cao Xueqin, in his nostalgia studio, worked on it for 10 years, in the course of which he rewrote it no less than 5 times, dividing it into chapters, composing chapter headings, renaming it the 12 Beauties of Jingling, and adding an introductory quatrain. Red Inkstone restored the original title when he recopied the book, and added his second set of annotations to it. This, then, is a true account of how the story of Stone be written. Page full of idle word, penned with hot and bitter tears. All men call the author fool, none his secret message hears. I truly value your opinions. Please participate in the discussion. By the way, for the full script, I have put the links below the video so that you can go to have a read and help you understand my pronunciation. Thank you. See you next time.